Good morning, Gonzaga. Let me try that again. Good morning, Gonzaga. Thank you guys for coming. My name is Callahan Smith. I'm a senior here on I Street. I just wanted to welcome you guys to DC History's presentation of the Heart of the City podcast by Silas Grant and Tony Lewis Stevenson Jr., class of '98. Thank you guys, and I hope you have a great time.
What's up? Where's the love? Where's the love? It's right here in the heart of the city. I'm Silas Grant, and I got my man with me.
What's up, bro?
Tony Lewis Jr. What's happening?
Good, man. I'm home, man. I'm back home. I feel good, man.
It's gotta feel good to be back, right?
What's up, Jim? What's going on, man?
The thing I love about Gonzaga is you all often refer to the street, I Street, right? You know, a lot of folks that are internal to the community will talk about just being on I Street. Another major street is North Capitol, a street that is near and dear to you in so many different ways, in so many different iterations of your life. So talk a bit about what North Capitol means to you from Hanover to I Street.
Yeah, man. So North Capitol, right? My street intersects with North Capitol, which is probably K, L, M, N, New York Avenue. So 5.5 blocks from here, right? But if you come out of my block and you stand on North Capitol, or you used to anyway, you can see the dome of the U.S. Capitol. And I took that route coming down North Capitol to come here, starting in 1994. The most interesting thing, I mean, particularly in 1994, my community was probably one of the most hardest impacted communities as it relates to the crack epidemic. Neighborhood dealing with a lot of poverty, crime, violence, so on and so forth. And when I walked just a short distance from my neighborhood to here, I walked onto this campus and it was a different world, a world that I had never experienced. And I was in a place where I felt like nobody else was, like me. Because it's not just about me coming from the community that I came from, but also, my family, my parents, my friends, their friends, were all participants sort of in a different, somewhat of an underworld, a subculture. And so I was raised in something that was different, and then I had to come here and, compete. I had to come here and find my way. I had to adjust, I had to adapt. And at that time, I don't think, not just Gonzaga, but just society in general, right? Sort of the behavioral health or mental health or counseling, all that stuff has been somewhat destigmatized. And I'm happy about that in today's world, that a kid that may be like me today in this environment may have more supports. But at that time, it wasn't nobody to really unpack that my father was doing life without the possibility of parole in federal prison. It was nobody here to really unpack that. My mother at that time was battling deep schizophrenia and was doing different stints in St. Elizabeth, which was our mental health institution. It was nobody here to unpack that, people, we get shot at. You know what I'm saying? That my friends are victims of gun violence and perpetrators of gun violence. There was nobody here to really unpack that with, and that be staff or even my classmates, right? And all the while, I'm around a completely different dynamic, a completely different culture. And a lot of that was race-based, it was socioeconomic based, it was just culture-based. It was, I was like I felt like an alien. I felt like I was on a different planet in here, especially 9th and 10th grade, mid junior years when I really started kind of getting my rhythm. But the one thing in closing, one thing I will say though, nobody ever made me feel like I didn't belong though. You understand? And I think that really helped me to hold on, right? Not to mention, this shit is not easy, right? Fellas, is you know, as far as academically, is this shit easy? It's not, right? So, it wasn't easy then, it ain't easy now. And I ain't had nobody at home to help me with my homework, you feel me?
Right.
You know? But the great thing, I will say this, there was a program that got instated like while I was here. It was called the Venco program. I don't know if the Venco program still exists. I think it kind of does, right? So, shout out to the Venco program, you know what I'm saying? So look, then, I don't want to say I was the first recipient, but I think I kind of was. But I wasn't no athlete. I ain't do nothing. You know what I'm saying? At 2:30, I was getting the fuck out of here because excuse my language, but I was trying to get back to the familiar as fast as I could, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So, I ain't playing no sports or nothing. And so, anyway, I was a recipient of the Venco program starting in my 10th grade year, and they got me a tutor. He was like a 4-star general. His name was Harry Griffith. And General Griffith would come and tutor me in I think algebra 2 trig and physics and I think geometry too before that. But anyway, it was those kind of supports though, bro, that really, you know. And this dude, a 4-star general, guess what he wouldn't do though? He wouldn't drop me off at home. He'd been in war. Yeah. He'd been in war, bro, but he wasn't dropping me off one.
Can I talk about that a little bit? Because, you know, for me, I knew growing up, going to public school, my biggest goal every day was getting home safe and going to school and being safe, right? Yeah. I had the advantage because I didn't go to my neighborhood school. So all my friends, I didn't have that pressure of having to defend them on the walk to and from school, right? But when we first met almost 20 years ago, you talked about the rivalry that your neighborhood had with the housing complex, which is right across from Gonzaga, right? So even though you're only 5 blocks away, you got to navigate going through a rival neighborhood that is abutting the property here. So talk a bit about what that felt like.
Yeah, so you guys across the street from here on K Street, and from K to M, there's a whole block between First Street and North Capitol, a community called Sursum Quarters. In my entire life up until 16 years old, we were like the same community. In the summer of 1996, my best friend got killed. And that started a beef between my neighborhood and Sursum Quarter. So from my junior year, senior year, I would have to, the beautiful thing about it was that was also the time when people started driving. You know what I mean? So a lot of people had cars. And so dudes would drop me off. You know what I'm saying? That's why I mentioned, General Griffith. He would take me to like New York Avenue when I get out the car. As long as I get past the quarters, I was cool. But I had to start getting a ride, or as you guys know, across the street, if we talking about North Capitol, on our side of North Capitol is Northwest, right? Which I live on this side. But across the street is Northeast. Well, I would walk over to the Northeast side and walk up, if I had to walk up North Capitol on the Northeast side till I got up my way. That was, little things I had to do. Or, you know what I'm saying, there was times I would come down here, you know what I'm saying, and I was telling Mr. Blair, I never used my locker. My whole time here, I never used the locker. Part of it is I felt like that would make me feel too comfortable here. But as I got in that situation, you know what I'm saying, I used to come down here with, I have a gun on me sometimes, you feel me? Because if I knew I had to walk, it was just, that's the way it was, you know what I mean? That's what I had to do to feel safe getting to and fro, you know what I mean? But shout out to my man Steve Rickman, and my man Glenn Wright, guys Chanel really well.
Yeah.
Glenn Wright, that's how me and Chanel know each other through Glenn.
Gotcha.
But Glenn had a little Honda Accord, he used to drop me off.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I want to ask 2 more questions before we transition to try to get some audience engagement. The first is, I have relationships with people at this school, a lot of parents that I know who have children in the school, students here. And recently, when we saw like the federal takeover of ICE and the National Guard, that alarmed a number of parents who send their children to the school. And I can imagine there's a sense of fear that they may experience as a result, right? What would happen if they engage with the National Guard or with ICE in the event they were walking from Union Station or getting out of an Uber or whatever the case may be. But that's not new to North Capitol, right? You can talk a bit about how the National Guard, as far back as 35 years ago, were, really engaging in, a not so pleasant way on the ground here on North Capitol.
Yeah, and it's even now, I think it's masked in public safety, right? And so if it was 1995, and the National Guard was on my block or on the corner of North Capitol, it was, for the sake of public safety, but you never felt like they were trying to keep you safe. And I think that dynamic, continues, particularly for a black man, you know what I mean? I think that is and that even goes as it relates to law enforcement across the board. And I think a lot of our work in the community has been aimed at trying to push law enforcement to be more community-centered, where that the entire community feels like you're there to keep them safe, not to extract certain people from the community. Now, and I think that gets misconstrued as people saying that everybody wants to feel safe and nobody is okay with crime, but that the law enforcement should be there to serve the entire community. And then also, I just think it's heavy-handed when we put our military should be working on national security, I feel, and not necessarily patrolling our communities, And, the mainstay, I think then and now, especially in the District of Columbia around crime, I feel, is that we have not done enough to address poverty, right? To provide opportunity, whereas people will get out of sort of a hopeless mindset that leads to them being a bit more productive, you know what I mean? So, yeah, man, and not just the National Guard, but just in terms of federal law enforcement in general has been a mainstay in my community. And I hope it won't be for my children's lives,
Sure,
yeah.
sure. So before we transition, I also wanted to give you an opportunity to talk a bit about your book. We're celebrating 10 years now, right?
Yeah.
That it's been out.
11.
11.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
11. Yeah.
So Slug, A Boy's Life in the Age of Mass Incarceration, a book that, at least a good portion of it, is staged in this era when you were at Gonzaga.
Correct.
Right? Correct. There are obviously other phases of your life that you cover, but a lot of it's inspired by this time that you were here. So talk a bit about that.
Yeah, so this was I wrote Slug. The last sentence of Slug was written in 2013 at the birth of my oldest daughter, Isabella, and it really covers my journey of becoming, a man for others, honestly, right? All of the things that went into me becoming the community activist, the advocate that I had became at that time as a 33-year-old man. Mm-hmm. And my time here helped frame a lot of that. But it did talk about too, not only what was happening to me, just like when I'm at Gonzaga, but also what was going on in my community and in my life and in my family during my time here, and how that's became foundational to who I will become as a man. And one of the chapters is actually my ode to this place is called Man for Others. I've really embodied or tried to embody that term, that mantra, something that every young man that comes through these doors in his 4 years here, it will be impressed upon him, not only his responsibility to his family, but also his overall responsibility to his community, wherever that community will be, right? I wanted Slug to be a roadmap for young men that grew up like me and young men that did not, that, service is one of the greatest things that you can do. And, I think we're all here to help those around us, help improve the spaces that we are in. And even people like Father Lucian Longton, Mr. Turner was up in here, a lot of folks, man, Miss Free, a lot of teachers here, Mr. Latour, a lot of folks that poured into my life. Even if they didn't even know the shit that I was going through at the time, but pouring into me, let me know that I had something that I could go past where I was at that current time. And I'm forever grateful for that.
You know, I'll be remiss. I do want to ask one more question before we transition, right?
Sure.
So tomorrow, February 11th, marks 15 years since you and I did the March for Peace. And that was also on North Capitol.
Absolutely.
And that birthed this podcast that we have now. So I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that and I didn't give you a chance to talk a bit about that
Nah,
too.
that's real. Because you guys, so me and Silas' relationship, our brotherhood, really was built in that moment. We had met each other before, talked about, he did a lot of community work in his community, in his area, and I did a lot of mine. There was a series of homicides in my community. 2 of them was young men that I knew, and then it was, I think, and this is right at the time when my community is really gentrifying. And 2 white dudes got shot, 1 died. And the response, though, to the white guys' murder was what it should have been, right? Not just, it wasn't an over response. It should have been what it was. But the reaction to the 2 black guys that got killed in the same, it was like a week and a half. I felt it didn't compare. We felt it didn't compare to the response that we got from the council members, the mayor, the police chief. And so we did a March for Peace, we called it, right? For peace in our community, but also to bring neighbors together, bring stakeholders together to say that, you know, this is before the sort of Black Lives Matter movement, but in the sense that, you know, that every life had importance. And whenever we lost somebody, we should be outraged. We should never feel like one death was expected or less important. And from that, you know, again, 15 years ago, you know, I gained a brother. We do everything. We've done so much together to help move this city forward. And it really, to me, was the like a seminal event in a sense of, it really helped me to see myself fully as, you know, because you guys, at this point in my life, even then, I still felt like I just was getting lucky. You know, I never saw myself being anything other than what I saw. And it's like that, it was like, oh, I'm 31 or whatever, just like, I'm not gonna go to jail. Like, I'm really gonna make it. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's people showing up. When we say come show up on North Capitol at 10 in the morning on a Saturday, like, look at all these people. They showed up because we asked them to. That really helped me, like, I think from there, you can really chart what we've done.
Since that point.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So that's a snapshot of your relationship with I Street, your relationship with North Capitol, but more importantly, your relationship with DC. And I want to transition now to try to go through a rapid round of those questions that we had, and we can try to take a tackle at answering those.
Let's do it. Hey, you guys, there's nothing off limits to it. I just want to say that.
Our first question for you, Mr. Lewis. The mic for this one. Is this on? It's not on.
I see the green light on.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Our first question for you, Mr. Lewis. What was your Gonzaga experience like? Are there any distinct, I know you touched on this earlier, but are there any distinct memories that you remember looking back on that time, and how did your father's absence impact your experience here on our street?
That's a great question. So you guys listen. I didn't do. Raise your hand if you went to sort of the summer school program thing before 9th grade.
Everybody.
Yeah, I did not. Okay, all right. I didn't do that. Right. So when I got here, I got the handbook, and I'm like, I don't know what any of the halls are. I don't know the difference between Fort Hall and Aruba. I don't even know if the halls are still named the same, but in Cantwell, I think that's what this used to be or whatever. But anyway, so I'm lost. I fucking step on a seal. So a dude come up to me like, what you doing? I'm like, what? Now mind me, I'm not even like, I'm in a different way. I'm like, hey, bro, don't touch me. Like, what the fuck? So he's like, you stepping on the seal? I'm like, what you mean? Like, I'm lost, bro. I'm super lost. So anyway, I think that's important to frame out like my, I was like really in a daze for like the first like 2 or 3 months. I was just telling Silas, y'all know Dave Dugan, right? Y'all know Mr. Dugan? Mr. Dugan was like my first friend, bro. We had biology class, first period. And like, he was like, hey man, what's your name, bro? I'm like, Tony, right? I was very quiet and talk to anybody. But Dugan kind of, became like my first friend, being honest. And then he like, man, I'm gonna show you, like, and we had like first and second period. We had second period like English or some shit. And so I'll walk with him. So he got me kind of acclimated. And but yeah, man, my experience here was just feeling like a fish out of water for a long time. But I also made friends, man. It opened up my world, even if I didn't fully understand it in that moment. DC has become much more, gentrified and much more diverse. In 1994, you know what I mean? I had never met a white dude my age. You know what I'm saying? So being here, and then in some of my classes, I was the only black dude in the class. So that shit was like it was just different. But again, the reason I think made it, because again, I met great people here, man. People who just didn't judge me, I don't think a lot of people didn't ask me a lot of questions, but when I talked about my father being in prison, it was no point of reference for that. And at that time, my father was not only in prison, but he was in they had shipped him to California. You know what I'm saying? So he was in California like from when he started his sentence in 1990 to like 2002. So it was very tough. Me and my dad had a close relationship, so it was very tough for him not only to be in prison, but to be that far away. I went to see him one time during my 4 years here. I went out to California in 1996. But yeah, man, it was just I look at this, my experience here though is something that opened up my world, my lens, my view, and helped me to. I did this. When I made it through here, even though I didn't really know what I wanted to do, I felt like I could do anything. You know what I mean? Just because how rigorous it was, and how even guys that may have come from Georgetown or Potomac or some shit like that, they didn't make it. Everybody who started with us didn't finish. So I took that as like a huge confidence booster for me to make it through here, for sure. And thanks for that question.
And then our next question is, did you ever feel like you had to prove yourself more due to your father's reputation, whether that was in school or in the streets?
Yeah. Not so much in school, because I think most people here didn't. Not only did they, for the guys that even knew that my father was locked up, they didn't really understand his magnitude, like in terms of the street. They didn't understand he was this, huge drug kingpin with, so much, lore about his name and all of that. So not so much that, but in my neighborhood and in DC in general, yeah, I think so. Because people will try you just because, you know what I mean? Like, people sometimes can be jealous, or they don't like the respect that you might get because your dad is this person, and people definitely, made the mistake of trying. No, I'm joking. But people definitely, I think, would sort of try to test that. And I felt like I definitely had to, prove myself. But I come from a place that no matter who your dad is, you got to prove yourself. I've had a lifetime of having this, unfortunately, you got to prove yourself where I'm from. Everybody does. And so with that, yeah, absolutely, I had to prove myself in different ways, for sure. Oh, I'm sorry, and I want just a caveat to that. As a man or as a professional, I think I've also had to go above and beyond to prove myself in a different way, because people have put limits or barriers on me because of the family I come from. And so I think I've taken a lot of pride in not hiding from who I am, being completely transparent of who I am. And I think that literally helped, not only help get my dad out of prison, but more importantly, help people that come from where I come from for, I think, broader society to see the humanity that exists there, right? That people are not just the mistake that they made, and that those same people that may have broken the law poured into me and helped me to become who I became. Yeah, so.
If you don't mind, I want to jump in real quick to kind of piggyback on that question, right? Because there are a bunch of young men in this room who, most have dads that, probably, these great influences in their lives, right? And they may be, to some degree, I don't want to say coasting, but kind of siphoning off of the energy their dads give, right? You could have easily done that and gone the same direction, but you didn't. And interestingly enough, I didn't tell you, the other day I was talking to a woman and she said, yeah, I talked to Tony the other day about an event you got going on. And I thought she was talking about you, but she was talking about your dad.
Yeah.
But your dad's name was very big, and now your name has almost surpassed that, if not surpassed it, right?
Yeah.
So I want you to kind of wrap all that in to talk about the importance of, the comfort in surpassing your father in that regard, and even connecting that with them having to live up to the legacy of their dads.
Yeah, and like some of y'all, that's a great question. 'Cause some of y'all might, your great grandfather might, been somebody prominent, and that shit is hanging over you. I know even when I was here, this is a great point, because even when I was here, it was like guys who may not gotten to a certain college. You know what I'm saying? They was suicidal over that. And I'm like, hey, what the fuck? Like, hey, home, like, bro, I'm not even going to college. Like, chill, like, you good. You know what I mean? But for them, everything's relative. So for them, they were like going in there, like, and nobody here, hey, run your race, bro. Don't worry about that shit. Like, try, like, do your best. If you don't get into the school that your great-great-grandfather went to, and your dad and your it's cool. You're gonna be all right. But I just wanted to say that. But I think, y'all hear me? I mean that, man. Just do what you can do. But for me, changing what my name means in this city was, very, very important to me. And I joke with my dad, I grew up, I was your son, now you my father, right? Like,
right.
People
Exactly.
point right. But you can sort of write your own legacy. Like, your destiny is yours, man. But it's great to stand on their shoulders. It's amazing to be able to do that in a way in which, but you gotta carve out who you are and what you are. I'm happy that I've been able to sort of change how our name is seen. But at the same time, I'm even happier that people sometimes can now see that a lot of the good things that people applaud me for, that my dad shares in that too. You know what I mean? And like, hopefully when it's all said and done, we've, and I'm saying we in terms of you, because you've been there with me in a lot of ways, been able to create avenues where he's been able to pour into others as well. Sure. And our example has been able to be used by others as a way for them to not only strengthen their father-son bond, but also to understand the importance of, loving your family in spite of, and that as the kid, right? And for a lot of you in the audience, right? As the kid, it's gonna come a point though where you're gonna have to stand on your own. I had to stand on my own a little earlier than I would have wanted, but it will come a time where the torch will be passed, so to speak, and you should be ready and able to preserve that torch. And then one day maybe you'll pass it to your kid. And in terms of how I father I got 2 daughters. I don't have any sons, but I just look at how different their life is. You know what I mean? How present I am, and I'm very intentional about that. But I also don't want to press upon them that they have to. Because they're going to grow up now with a dad who named, my dad is Tony. That's going to mean something to people. But I want them to know that I'm not trying to add any additional pressure to them. I want them to be whatever they want to be. And part of, the work that we do is like about making this city and the world a better place for them, so they can be as free as possible to do whatever they want to do. And I got to be okay with that. I don't want them to necessarily have to live up to some standard, based on who I am or what I've done. That's so I tried to, with my father, I could have easily went into the street. And I didn't always think that I wouldn't, because it's not, for me, every man in my life was in that lifestyle. And it wasn't just my dad, it was everybody. You know what I mean? So I know that the choices that I've made really has, I think, made it easier for young men in general to know that they can sort of carve out their own lane and kind of make their name, even if they're named after somebody. You know what I'm saying?
I got you.
This is a question for both of you. You guys expressed even how difficult it was just getting to and from school and all these trials and tribulations. What does it mean to be from DC, and what is the significance of that in your life, and why is it so important to both of you?
So my experience in DC, so my dad passed away about 4 years ago. My mom is still around in the same house, the same telephone number. If you dial her home number, if you got yearbooks and you sign your name and your phone number, if anybody wants to find me, they can find me because my mom is still there answering the phone every day, right? I bring that up because one thing about DC that's important to me and what I love about it is the connectivity, the longevity of the connectivity, and how that allows you to vet people and you're able to build trust and relationships as a result, right? So I'm the kind of person, and Tony knows this, I have a hard time building relationships if I don't know things about your family, right? That's kind of a DC thing. Hanging out at the mall or clubs and things of that nature, you see people come around that you've never seen before. You don't know who they are. You don't know who their uncles are, who their dad is, who their sisters or brothers are. That's a limitation for me as far as like building relationships with people, because DC is so rooted in that sort of connectivity, right? So I went to public schools my entire life. I graduated from Coolidge, and my daughter now goes to a private school, and it is a very diverse school. And it's interesting, I'm on the board of the school, and I'm kind of like the person that the headmaster and the board members go to when we have issues with diversity and things of that nature, right? I've become that sort of person in that universe, or at least one of them. And it's funny, when we pick up our children at 3 o'clock, I know a lot of the black families, but I believe a lot of the white families think that we coalesce because we're black. And it's like, no, I know them, right? I have a student, well, my daughter is in class with a student where her mom went to elementary with me, right? Another girl in the class, her father was my co-worker, and we do a lot of personal work together, right? Almost every black family at the school, I have a DC connection with them. So from a distance, it looks like, oh, they're just talking because they're like the minority group talking, but no, we've got real connections as a result of being in DC our entire lives. So for me, DC is really about connectivity, that longevity around connectivity, and how that trust is built as a result of that.
Yeah, man, I love this place. This is like, I live in the same house. Like, I ain't never moved. I've lived in the same house my entire life. And it's just, this city was also, especially in the time that we grew up, was a place unlike any other place in America. And but what comes along with that, it's been tough being from here. It's like everything that we know or knew is becoming extinct, and we're watching it in real time, which is a pain in that. It's a pain in not being able to share certain things with my children. And things like every community changes, right? But I don't think any place has changed as rapidly as Washington, D.C. in the last 25 years, Mike. And so the culture that we grew up in, it's fading. It's literally evaporating. And a lot of the work that I do, particularly in the criminal justice space, helping with economic stabilization for men and women that are returning from incarceration, that work is really about helping people to stay home in a literal sense, right? In terms of not recidivating or going back to prison, but also being able to remain in the District of Columbia. And so that framing is like what my life's work has become. Being a champion, being a participant in a cheerleader, honestly, for any and everything that is Washington, D.C. all while trying to be a preservationist in terms of, preserving not just culture, because culture can't preserve itself without people practicing in that culture, right? But I'm also excited every day by seeing the growth, right? By seeing the progression, and so the work has been about how do we ensure that everybody can participate in the progression. I mean, just look at the block, just look at the surroundings around this campus, right? Gonzaga's big homie, Georgetown University, has bought up the whole, basically up to 5th Street, right? You got the redevelopment of the community Sursum Quarter that I spoke of, NOMA that's on the northeast side, and all of the buildings and stuff, businesses, government agencies. So this community right here really is a microcosm of what's happening in the District of Columbia. But the people that either has been here for decades, like myself and my family, cannot be an afterthought. And we cannot accept that they just did not want to do enough. It's very easy to do that. That's very lazy though. And you think about like Father McKenna, who I never met. But the McKenna Center, clearly right here in St. Ives, is named after a guy. When I was growing up though, I used to hear about this priest who used to come on my block. Like my block was very notorious. Like, you ain't from my block, people didn't come. I used to hear about this priest that would come on our block and try to help families. And my aunts, my grandmother, tell my Father McKenna, right? And let me tell you how stupid I was. Dog, I never put 2 and 2 together, bro. Till the day I graduated, it hit me because my grandmother said it yeah, old Father McKenna. I'm like, that's the dude y'all used to talk about? That's the McKenna Center is named after this dude? I'm like, shit. But the reality is this. That's what DC needs that. We need that mindset that you just can't leave people behind. And for me, we done every coat drive, toy drive, turkey drive. That's fine. These sort of moments. But I'm not with charity as much as I'm with stabilization, right? We have to be in a position where we trying to see people thrive. We want people to be our neighbor, not like somebody where I'm not taking nothing away from us servicing people that's in need in a moment. But what are we building as a city that people can, no matter their past transgressions, can sort of find their way back into the fold? And I think that's my pledge for the rest of the time that I'm here, to try to help figure that out, because that's the only way I think we hold on to any remnant of the District of Columbia that I love so dearly.
Our country is currently experiencing great political divide. How can we, as Gonzaga men who hold many diverse opinions, use our platform to inspire unity?
Man, that's a great question. I'm gonna take a stab at that real quick. Hey, listen, this is the thing, man. The beautiful thing about having diversity is that you won't believe some of the generalizations or the lies for real about each other. In general, every group has these things that's out there about who they are. Build the relationships, right, amongst this student body where you can be a living example, not just what we say, live it, do it, show it. And yeah, there's gonna be some things that we gonna see differently. That's why you listen to each other, and sometimes we can agree to disagree. You know what I mean? But a disagreement doesn't have to lead to hate. You know what I mean? There's some things that are fundamental, and that's even, again, in terms of you guys coming into your own, whether you black, white, Hispanic, Asian, and everything in between. You are also going to see some things differently than your parents. So did I, right? But that's what life is about. When you have certain experiences and you say, okay, mom, dad, That might be true for you, but for me, I don't subscribe to that. And it's important. It's not on. It's gonna be your generation, because whatever happens next. Now, I'm talking about in DC purely. I'm talking about in this country. Whatever happens next, good or bad, it's really gonna be on you guys, right? And you guys are dealing with AI. You like the first generation to really grow up fully in with social media, like as a part of, like, technology is a part of your everything, right? Y'all don't even know how to write in cursive and some shit, right? Like, this is a new, in the world, we talking about the country being politically divided. The world is, and we also, you growing up in a, where literally you live in a global society as well, right? So the world is in a very shaky place. And so you guys are inheriting a lot. But I think because of your ability to see how other people live, to know that it's not just one version of a group of people that you see, you guys, I think, are well positioned, much better positioned than us to do something about it. You know what I mean?
I was going to say, so I want to be very real with y'all for a minute, right? If you don't hear anything else I say today, please listen to this, right? Your parents didn't send you here for nothing, all right? They sent you here because they expect you all to be the best and the brightest in the world, right? The alums of Gonzaga go on to do incredible things, right? I admire you all, like from afar, I really do, because this is the kind of experience that I wish I had at your age. So there are going to be congressional leaders that come out of this room. They're going to be potentially senators that come out of this room, lobbyists, right? People that actually write, change, and enhance laws.
Supreme Court justices
that could come out of this room. I'm not just saying that because we go to a lot of rooms, you know, you tell kids, oh, you can be anything you want to be. That really is the case in this room, all right? And I want y'all to really understand that. So with that question, you all have more of a responsibility because it's more probable that you all can solve the issues that the world may be facing when you become adults. And quite honestly, now you all have the power to be able to solve some of those issues. The biggest thing I'll end with on that question is your discussions with people who don't agree with you don't have to be captured in one engagement, right? It's okay to have continuing conversations. I don't have to have an answer or a rebuttal for everything that you say in the moment. So let's have a living conversation. The way we have a living document on Google or whatever the case may be. If you and I disagree, let's continue the conversation. Let's go away from each other, reflect on it, come back, acknowledge points that are being made by the other person. You all have the ability to create a real communication channel with other powerful people to keep that going, enhance it, and then come up with real solutions.
Now we're going to shift the conversation in a different way. I see that you have the foam posits on. What is the significance of the foam posits in New Balance and DC fashion? And furthermore, what does DC fashion mean to, like, the culture in DC? What's the role of fashion in DC culture?
Yeah, man. I think. Go ahead.
I gotta say this, all right? So, again, I didn't go to Gonzaga, but I got a lot of relationships with Gonzaga grads, right? One is in the room, Marcus Taylor. He and I went to Hampton together. We both got there in 1997, right? So that's my dear friend. I come and work out in the morning. Some of y'all see me in the morning when y'all coming in for practice, right? So in 1999, the gold flight posits came out, right? So they were kind of like that color, but a different model. And at Hampton University, where we went to school together, we would all go to the library to hang out, right? And one particular day, I had to use the restroom, right? And you know, sometimes you gotta go to the restroom, you wanna get a little privacy. So I had this little secret bathroom up on the 5th floor of the library, right? I was like, nobody will see me up here. So, you know, the door kind of ends like right here. So here I am on the stall, and you can see my gold flight posits. So the door opens, I hear somebody start laughing, I hear the water run. And it's Marcus running water with wet paper towels, throwing them over the stall at me because he saw my gold flight posit. He knew it was me, right? So, you know, that's the kind of pranks we would play. But my point in that story is that we were very, very identifiable as DC guys back then. You know, you see these sneakerheads on TV now talking about it. Nobody from New York or LA or anybody was wearing the phone posits and flight posits how DC guys wore them. So for him to see me in the bathroom, he knew it was me, right? Because there were only so many DC guys on campus and only so many DC guys who were wearing those shoes. And if you talk to anybody from the 90s across the country who went to HBCUs in particular, they'll tell you the DC guys wore those crazy moon-looking boots, right? And it was like, that was a thing, you know, phone posits defined who we were to a degree.
Right, so, yeah, I mean, DC fashion really was birthed out of street fashion, right? The streets dictated how people dress, what was cool. The street guy, and the uniform, the New Balance, the phone posit, became synonymous with people from this region. And what you wore, how you wore it, was an identifier. It was a part of you. And at a time when we were growing up, certain shoes or certain clothing brands, but we also had a lot of streetwear brands like Madness and We Are One, All Days, things like that, that a DC guy would be identifiable anywhere in the country. And so, especially like with the New Balance, that became a multi-generational shoe. You know what's crazy? What a lot of people don't know though, what you might consider the congressman or the congressional staffer that worked on Capitol Hill, who lived in Georgetown, a lot of the street guys from DC who might have been in the underworld would go to stores like Racket and Jog and things of that nature and would really buy the shoes that those guys had on. A lot of people don't know that and kind of made it their own. And so in DC you got this thing where the guy who, and if you sell drugs, you outside a lot, you stand on the corner a lot, you want something comfortable on your feet too, believe it or not. Right? So the guy who, and then even a lot of the congressional staff, like a neighborhood like mine, like, you know, people that work on the Hill get high too, right? Y'all know that, right? Just if you don't know. So it'd be neighborhoods like ours that those people stop by, you know, and purchase. They may have on something, you know. So it's a cross-fertilization there that nobody talks about. But all in all, it became a staple in DC. And it's really those kind of things. And I appreciate you pointing out the phone pods. Like that kind of stuff can't die. You know what I mean? We gotta continue that. And there's some things I do intentionally, but some of it is just who I am, because that's all I know. When it comes to a kid that's 15, 16, 14, or whatever right now, I don't know if he feel as tied to that as I did, you know, but I want him to. You know what I'm saying? I want him to. And so buy some phone posits and some shit. Buy some 992 New Balance. I mean, I like all New Balance, but 992 is probably the ones that, you know, get some New Balance, man. You know what I'm saying? Keep it decent. For sure.
You know, we talked about fashion and how that influences culture. We're going to shift over to music, specifically the genre of go-go. Do you have any experience of like going to any go-go shows, and what was that like for both of you?
I grew up in the go-go, man. You know what's crazy? One of the cool things about Gonzaga back then, like they would have go-go's here, or not just Gonzaga though, but like some of the different schools, the mixes and all that shit. Y'all still do that? I don't know. There's no more mixes? That's crazy, really. So how y'all meet girls? Like, what happened? Y'all just Snapchat. Cut out the middleman. But we would have, the bands would come and play, certain bands would come and play. Now, it was funny though. Like me, I grew up you know what I mean? I grew up, like my neighborhood, like we went to go-go, to the go-go's, we would call it, right? And I remember taking a lot of dudes that was like from down here with me, because the go-go was like super dangerous back then. You know, their experience to go-go was just like at a school. Like that was a safe go-go, you know. And it's cool. It was supposed to be that way. But like I went to the go-go in general, you know. And so it was like, I remember like in some of the bands would know me and stuff like that, because I was a different kid. I wasn't a kid for real when I was a kid, you know. But so I say all to say that was a part of us. That was a part of, and it was nothing more important than, that was where you socialized, that's where you mourned, that's where you celebrated. For growing up in DC, to go to a go-go concert was super important. And that fashion really ties into that as well, because that's why we were different than the rest of the country. We were really isolated from, everybody was going through sort of the hip hop and rap phase, which we were fans of rap, but in terms of our local culture, go-go was preeminent. It was the most important thing. So we kind of stayed very insulated. And yeah, if you wasn't at the go-go, you wasn't doing nothing. Like, who were you if you weren't like at the go-go? You know what I'm saying? That's when you met girls. That's when you let the world know that you existed. You know what I'm saying? And especially from the lens that how I grew up. You know what I mean? From street culture. Like, that was the most important thing. You know what I'm saying? I remember some of the bands playing at a Holy Cross, or one of them kind of, and see me in there like, what you doing in here? Because a lot of people couldn't tell nobody I went to Gonzaga. They just they didn't believe it based on, how they saw me, you know what I mean? So yeah, go-go was super important. It still is to us.
Yeah, I'll add to that. We sort of started this conversation talking about streets, right? North Capitol, and if you ever listen to go-go, specifically the 90s into the early 2000s, and maybe even today as well, a lot of the call and response from the people that are the lead mics and the rappers for the go-go music, they're often communicating to the crowd and acknowledging throughout the crowd the different neighborhoods that are represented, right? In fact, that's probably a lion's share of the verbal sort of part of the music. And what's interesting is that in the time in which we were in high school and early parts of college, you could take a strip like First Street right here, and on a tape you would hear almost every intersection from this particular part of First Street all the way up as far as the hospital. So First and W was different than First and R. First and T was different than First and V. And now what you find, because of gentrification and because of the revitalization of the city, certain neighborhoods don't exist anymore. And you have different neighborhoods who were like brutal rivals that now they may buy a section in the club together and pop champagne together because that's all they've got left is each other. Yeah. So you've seen neighborhoods that would never even be in the same building with each other. They've been able to forge relationships really out of force. And one of the things that, talking about the 15 years that you and I have been doing work together, I've always been amazed at your description of, an adaptation, and how it's so important to adapt, and how those who don't adapt, they cease to exist. And so when you listen to go-go today versus go-go 30 years ago, you can even hear it in the neighborhoods that are being called out versus the ones that are no longer being called out, that those neighborhoods not being called out in the shows don't exist anymore, and those who do remain have had to adapt. That's why today go-go is not as violent as it used to be, because
or vibrant,
right? Because they've got to find a way to survive, and they've realized that, unfortunately, through the demise of the city, from a perspective of what DC used to be.
Yeah, and I think we're proud that we played a role in the passing of legislation introduced by Kenny McDuffie to make go-go DC's official music. Another painful thing is like go-go is dying. There's no band your age. You know what I mean? When I was in high school, it was all kind of bands. It's a dying genre because, again, the culture, the people that participated in that culture, they're aging, and it has not been able to pass. So now a young guy from DC, he want to rap, but he doesn't want to be in a go-go band. In DC, very interestingly enough, like even the black church, restaurants that cater to black people, like all of that is at risk. The barbershop, because the people that participated, right? Can you imagine? Like, I don't know. I travel a lot all around this country, bro. I ain't never seen a church for sale except for in DC, bro. Think about that. A church. You know what I mean? So all of these things that we've talked about, they really aren't separate, because we really talking about the same group of people. Do you know what I mean? those people that were like impacted by mass incarceration, addiction, lack of opportunity, mental health, food insecurity, housing insecurity, all of these things, displacement, gentrification. It's the people that we grew up with. And so anything that they did or participated in, not anything, but most things, are at risk, right? So again, in terms of what happens next, even for you guys, in whatever you go on to do, just understand your responsibility to be a man for others, right? Because some people who could have held a lever or done more to help other people have chosen not to, or chosen more to just help a select few people. But long term, when too many of us do that, it puts a lot of people in a bad spot. But yeah, like we say, long live go-go, don't mute DC. All those things were rallying cries, not just about the music, but also about the people that participated in the culture.
Now we're going to open it up to the audience. So if you guys have any questions, please come forth, state your name, and ask your questions.
So I'm Teddy Blumstrom, I'm a senior. How did you actually, what were the forces driving you to attend Gonzaga initially? And then having that experience, would you want the same private school experience for your daughters, if possible?
Yeah, that's a great question. Look, so my mom, man, so I went to Catholic, grade school, pre-K to 8th grade. So I'll never forget this little meeting we had. And my mother really started to go through her bouts, right, with schizophrenia. I'm seeing it. I'm the only child to you guys, just for some backdrop. So I'm seeing it. You know what I mean? My mother different. I know it, but the world, everybody else around us ain't really seen it yet. We go to this meeting, a lady named Sister Cooper, nun worked in my school, was telling my mother that, that the math or Carol, or in 8th grade, you got to fill out for where you want to go to high school. At the time, bro, I don't want to go to none of the above. I want to go to Dunbar. That's my neighborhood school, you know what I'm saying, whatever. So, but she was like, he should apply for Gonzaga or St. Albans, that the math or Carol wouldn't be challenging enough for Tony, blah, blah. I'll never forget this conversation. So, I fill out the application. Now, I don't do I said I didn't come to Orange. I didn't do the shadow. I didn't do the summer school stuff. But I remember getting in. Me and my mother came to orientation. Orientation was out on we met out by the field. So it was my mother's and Sister Cooper's idea. I didn't want to go here, man. I didn't know. Again, I walked past this place a lot in my life, but I didn't know. You know what I mean? I had no engagement with the school or nothing. Didn't want to go here. But I got in. And my mother was like, "You going?" And she couldn't pay for it or no shit, but she wasn't in the right. But it's a blessing, right? She always been a big dreamer. And then what was the second part of your question?
Your daughters.
Oh, yeah, if my bankroll right, I definitely wouldn't mind them going to visitation. You know what I'm saying? But you know what? This is the thing though. They're great. They go to a charter school called Inspired Teaching. Because one of the things that, this is one, I'm going to tell you guys something. My age group, if you from DC, for the most part, you wasn't never around white people, right? Just hit me out. So when white people just start being your neighbors and shit, a lot of people ain't know how to adjust. They didn't know.
It's funny because I grew up near Catholic University, so I had a different experience.
Yeah.
That university gave me a buffer, but most of my counterparts, my peers, don't have the same experience I had with that.
Right, so even not in my neighborhood, but even at work. So when white people started moving into DC and being in spaces, for me, it ain't me. It was what's up? And people, I got friends who say, yo, Tony, they say shit like, man, white people really like you. And I'm like, yeah, I like them too. What you mean? But it's it's not, people are people to me, but my experience here gave me that. And so for my kids though, they're getting that much early because their school is really diverse. And that's one of, I think, the most important things about being in a space where you around other people, right? And I want that for my kids, and not only, you know, I was raised Catholic. My raising my kids Catholic. So the idea of going to Catholic school, they haven't been yet, but I would be open to that for sure if I can afford it. That's the question, you know what I'm saying? And then like for us, if I can't afford it, we might make too much money to get some help. So I'm in between a rock and a hard place. But yeah, well, I like that. I appreciate that question too, man.
Quick question. Having read some of Slug, can you speak about how your grandmother helped connect the dots when your mom was going through her bouts and your father was away? Can you speak about grandma?
For sure, man. That's my her and my aunt Bonnie, which is my mother's older sister, my guardian angel, man. So y'all, when I started here, right, 94, my grandma retired that year. So my grandmother worked at the Bureau of Engraving and Print. My grandmother ain't had like no high-ranking government job, but she had a government job, and she retired. So 9th grade come, we taking finals, or it was finals time. And so they told her basically, hey, yo, like, Tom, he can't take his finals unless he paid his tuition. Remember, my mother got me here, but like, the archdiocese gave me like some money, but we had an outstanding bill. My grandmother just retired, man. She went into her she didn't have a whole lot of savings. She went into her life savings, man. And I never forget, because I walked the check into the headmaster's office, man. I forget what it was. I think it was like $5,700 or something, but that shit was significant, you know what I'm saying? Especially for her. And yeah, man, she went in her life savings to pay the tuition for me to be able to take my finals. And then I went to summer school that year for algebra, I'll never forget it. And so going into 10th grade year is when and my mother was in bad, you know, it was tough, man. My grandmother was there every step of the way, and my aunt, man, they without them, I ain't no me. I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have got through this. You know what I'm saying? I'd probably be dead for real or locked up without question. My grandmother was my everything, man. And she encouraged me even when she didn't know what I was going through here. All she would say, baby, try your best. She said, you trying your best? I'd be like, yeah, Mom, I'm trying my best, man. Shit, I hate that joy. She'd be like, all I can ask you, try your best. And eventually, you know what I mean, she was also like my North Star. She was my muse. Like I wanted to make her proud. You know, all my uncles in and out of jail, you know what I'm saying? I didn't want to stress her. And I think that was the one thing that played a big role in my decision making. You know, whatever I would decide to do, I thought about, damn, could I look her in her eyes? You know what I'm saying? And when she passed, my grandma died in the end of 2025, December 26th, 2025. So she been gone over a little over a decade. And I ain't gonna lie to y'all, I was scared because I didn't know how, you know, without her, like without having that. But I got my wife now, and I got my daughters, right? They become that. And I share that to say, you know, for y'all as young men and then who soon to be men and be out on your own, you know, always have something to somebody that you could, you know, that you have on your mind. Like, damn, if I do this, can I look them in their eye? You know what I mean? Can I live with myself if I make this decision? I was often in a tumultuous sort of situation in terms of the neighborhood things I had to face. But you gonna have everything's relative, and you gonna have your own things in your life that you're gonna have to make some tough decisions, man. Yeah, make your family proud though, and that's the one thing I wear and I'm the most proud of in my life is that I made her proud, and I ain't gotta guess about it. You know what I'm saying? I know that I made her proud. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, thanks for that question, Stu.
Yeah, what's up? My name's what's up, bro?
My name is Tyler Machkowski. I'm a senior here, and you guys talked about the March for Peace about 15 years ago, and I just want to know your thoughts on like how DC has changed in protesting over the last 15 years and how impactful it's been over the last 15 years and how that's just changed.
So Tony mentioned when he first brought up the story about the March for Peace that we got a lot of people to come out. But to be more specific, we got a lot of creatives, like artists, musicians, people that are influencers, party promoters that came to our event, clothing line owners that came to our event. I think in the last 15 years, we've been instrumental in redefining who gets involved in demonstrations. It used to be the thing where the pastors dominated that arena. And we were the ones that said, no, the modern, sophisticated, creative people need to also have an interest in these issues. And you all may have heard of the mantra, DC or nothing. That was started that day. And what DC or nothing was really about was we have everybody and everything we need here. We don't have to glean from any other city or any other country. We've got talent here, we've got concerned people here, and we can take that concern as well as that talent, merge those things together, create products and services that can change the world. So that's how I think it's changed.
Yeah, I think definitely I agree. We changed who would lead these efforts. And over the last 15 years, right, we've seen, I think protesting in this country just take form and become different. But I also believe that one of the things that I've learned, that the protest ain't enough, right? Like it really has to, and what we've done locally, and then somewhat nationally, is turn some of these, what starts as a protest, that becomes policy. And that policy has to be the goal. Some long-standing changes that will exist even when we're not here. Because otherwise, it's not just noise. I won't reduce it to being just noise, but if it's not a clear goal and what you want changed from a policy and legislation standpoint, then it will be just for the moment, right? So I think as an activist, as advocates, I think we've grown in that. So now it became from just us wanting to let the city know that this is an injustice or something that needs to change. We're coming to the table saying, okay, we're protesting, but this needs to change. Here is sort of an outline on a law, like, or we know a council member to go and have and hold court with. And again, we're empowered. And so for your generation to know that, you know, you're not voiceless, you're not powerless. You know what I mean? And I think that's the beauty of this country. It take a long time sometimes, but change can happen.
All right, guys, let's give a. Oh, we got one more question.
Jason.
I'm Jason Leslie. I'm a junior here, and my question is, like, I'm from PG County. My people's from DC. My father from Southeast. My mother. But my question is, I don't know if you pay attention around the city right now, but a lot of kids my age, like, they dying, like, just as bad. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on, but it's not as much as the drugs and stuff that's going on right now. It's just people my age just being hit left and right. Like, I lost my best friend and he was 14 years old. He got shot at a gas station. And, like, these are kids as it going. So, like, what do you think is the music that's changing the kids, or do you think, like, what do you think is going on?
No, Jason, that's a great question. And you know, I definitely understand. I think that, you know, when we was growing up, it was kids too, right? And that's the thing. But what hasn't changed is different era, different dynamics. Y'all, this generation right now, y'all access to guns and the type of guns is just different, you know? But the reality of it is, I think that, you know, art can imitate life. And so, yeah, the music can be a part of it, but I never believed that the music is the cause of it. There's a similar thing was still going on when it wasn't the music, right? But some of the thing that has persisted has been poverty, lack of access, things of that nature that creates this culture where violence is prevalent. I think social media anything can play a role in something when it's utilized in a negative way. But again, the answers to y'all problems is going to come from y'all. It's not going to come from old people like us. What we've tried to do is empower young people that are the leaders to be able to come up with the solution. But access to guns, you know what I'm saying? the 3D printing of the guns, the switches on the guns, you know what I'm saying? And then people, for a lot of young black men specifically, but not just young black men, young white men, like this idea of like, but this is America. The gun is an American thing. It's not created in America, but this two-way, you know, like it's nothing more American than the right to bear arms. So some of this stuff that we write off as street stuff or gangster now, part of it too is just, it's more guns than people in this country. I'm not an anti-gun guy. The way I come up is impossible for me to be that way. But what I am saying is all of that is in the pot. And so if it's easy access to guns and then people are being more desensitized through video games and things of that nature and just this lack of recognizing people's humanity, that and talking about a young underdeveloped mind, right? Because you mentioned these are kids, so people aren't understanding the full magnitude of what they're doing. So all of that in the pot is creating or has created a situation where, and the fact I'm on my feed, I see it every day. So now I'm also hyper like sensitive and aware because in my mind, everybody is dangerous. So that's why we got we got soldiers walking in our streets right now for that, because all of that stuff is in the pot. And you know, I think we got to get back to seeing people in a way and looking through a lens of love. Like that might sound cliche, but that's just real. That's the only way we going. And for youngins that have, and I'm speaking specifically to, you know, the young men that come from a similar situation, or their parents come from a similar situation that I am. And for especially for the young black men in this room, don't ever let nobody make you feel like you soft because you smart, or like that street shit cool. You know what I mean? Your blackness is not tied to being a gangster. And some along the way, that's what we've been prescribed. That's what people have sent to us. Either you're an athlete or you on some fringe street rap shit. And that's why I stand so strongly in who I am for y'all. That be intelligent out loud, help people out loud. Like that's the mark of a man. That going to prison or being around the quote unquote tough crowd and all that's a myth. That's a farce. But too many young people get caught up in that, you know. But again, I know that you guys also have to travel, you know, safely. People want to feel safe. That's a human need. I walk the same streets y'all walk, and so I get it. But the answers to your generation's problems lie within y'all generation. You know what I mean? Our role is to help support and protect you enough that these ideas can manifest themselves, man. But know that every generation that's the problem for us. It keeps happening. So my question, my point would be no, I don't think it's just the music. And a lot of times I've been supportive of the music because I feel like the music is an avenue out of that. You know what I mean? The music can be for some people that otherwise ain't gonna do nothing. And I spend a lot of time in these federal prisons, man, and seeing young men, 18 years old with 50 years for taking a life. And it's just so crazy. You see the dynamic of them when they in prison versus when they on the street. All that tough shit out the window. It's the saddest thing, bro. It's the saddest thing because it's like all that potential. It's gonna be there. And the world, you know, I feel like some of the greatest ideas might be locked away in prison forever because young men fell into these traps. And so I hope that for any young man in this room, particularly for the young black men in this room, just understanding that if you make it through here, man, you can do anything, and you got a responsibility to stay away from the bullshit. All of y'all, right? But I'm talking specifically to the young black men that got to deal with different things. You got a responsibility, and some of that gonna take being by yourself sometime. Yeah, it be like that, but you'll find your tribe, bro. You know what I mean? Just stay the course.
Can I just say two quick things really quickly? One, to your point, Jason, I acknowledge the pressure that you all are under because we grew up in a time where everybody didn't have cell phones. Every dispute you have now, somebody's recording it, is a record of it. And so you feel this pressure as young men to respond to someone who is antagonizing you, bullying you, or testing you. And so if there's footage of every interaction that goes negative, quite honestly, even a kid who does not come from like this default violent community is more susceptible to committing violence because there's a level of embarrassment that comes along with somebody videotaping on a phone an interaction where somebody got the best of you, right? So I think that also plays a factor beyond music. It's just the fact that at any given point, Union Station, Norman Station, you get into an argument, the first thing people do now is record, and from multiple angles. And before you know it, by the time you get to your train station, it's all over the web. So I'm acknowledging that and giving you guys grace to understand that, hey, I know what y'all are going through, or at least I empathize with it. But the responsibility for you guys is, if you don't want to feel that pressure, don't put that pressure on others by recording. You got to be the person to step up and say, you know what, I'm not going to record that, because what if I were in those shoes? The other piece I would say is, and I loved your message to the young black students here, but I want to talk to the white students here too. When you are engaging in relationships and friendships with your black counterparts, look at them beyond what you see on television about black people, right? Don't just use them as an outlet to begin understanding like the gangster lifestyle that has been portrayed online, right? They have more to them than just the stereotypical tropes that we see on television. So having a black friend is not enough. It's acknowledging the entire span of their humanity, the history of their families, the history of their communities. It's more than just the shoes, the chicken wings and mumble sauce, and the rap videos, right? There's much, much more rich traditions that are in their families. And for those of you that are black, step beyond that, right? Push back, allow people to know the fullness of where you come from and what that means to you. So those two things wrapped in a bow, I would say, really take the pressure off each other by not, adding to the issue of recording and making things public that, start from disputes, and really seeing the fullness of each other.
All right, guys, let's give a huge thank you to Silas. Guys, Silas started this podcast and he says, where's the love, where's the love? All right, the love is here at Gonzaga. Let's remember some of these important messages. We have a responsibility to be men for and with others. Gonzaga is not just a 4-year experience, right? So keep DC in your heart. Go with Christ. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, just like them, just like that. Yeah. Wait.